Hey guys, my name is Haley and today I'm going to be filming my June wrap-up. Am I aware that I haven't filmed a single other wrap-up this year? Yes. Is that going to stop me from telling you about all of the gay books that I read in June? No, it is not. We're just going to jump right on into this because I read 21 books in June, which is the most books that I've read this year in a month. So the first book I finished was a rollover from May because I had an arc I needed to read before June hit, and that is Common Grounds by Ali Samberts. This is an author that I've read her arcs for her before. This was really cute. They had a side queer relationship, so it technically counted for June as well. But I just think she writes really cute contemporaries, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it 3 stars. Sorry, 3.75 stars. I rounded it up to a 4 on Goodreads. The second book I read in June was Partners by Jay. This is an author I really enjoyed. She writes, I'm pretty sure, exclusively sapphic books, and this was a little novella of hers. It was literally like 60, 70 pages, and it was just about these 2 sapphic women working through some problems they were having, and it was just them having a very meaningful adult conversation, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Next up is This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. This was not a book I'd ever heard anything about, but it kept coming up on like queer recommendations and I didn't know what it was about. I just started reading it thinking it was like a contemporary. It's not. This is like, I like to describe it as if COVID had been a zombie virus instead of like a flu virus. And the people who got infected with it, there was a whole pandemic where the people that got infected with it basically turned into mindless zombies and killed and ate people. But they ended up finding a cure, and anybody who got the cure has to spend the rest of their life eating human meat. So they've made this like edible human flesh. I don't want to know how they're growing it. But they've made this like edible human flesh that just is in grocery stores now, and there's a whole commentary on how people think these people shouldn't be allowed back in society even though they're completely normal as long as they eat their flesh. But there are certain things that will put them into frenzies. And this is a little queer band of characters and girls who are going to like this big concert. They all have this disease, so they all have to eat like their flesh, their human flesh, and bring it with them in like a cooler to the concert, like to the festival. And what happens is they get there, they meet this band, and they're very prejudiced against the people who eat flesh. And it's like a whole social commentary on so many things, not only pandemics, but like prejudice against people who are different from you. And I just found it so fascinating. It is one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but I loved it. It has a sapphic romance. There's trans characters. There's a lot of queer rep in this. And it's just a bunch of like teenage girls, like almost adults. Like I would categorize it in the new adult area, about these girls who are just trying to live their lives even though they like sometimes have to eat human flesh. It sounds so weird to describe. Like, it reminds me a lot of Tender is the Flesh, which I didn't really like. I thought it was too serious and I didn't like the direction the story took. I think this did that concept way better. Oh, and I gave it 4 stars if I did not say that earlier. Then I read His for the Summer. This was a really cute male romance about a summer camp. It was mostly smut, so if you're looking for smut-based things, I recommend this. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was fine. It wasn't my favorite, but if you're looking for a cute male romance with a lot of smut, there you go. And then I read this book called Out of Character by Jen Miller, I believe is the author's name. And this was really interesting. There is a sapphic romance, which is why I originally picked it up. But this has a lot of anxiety rep and also representation for online communities. Like, they are in a role-playing community, and that's what they do online. I believe it's through Discord, where they role-play their favorite characters from this series. It's like a pirate fantasy series that's like huge in this world. And our main character doesn't let anybody in her real life know about the fact that she role-plays online, and it becomes an issue later on when she starts to date this girl, doesn't tell her anything about it, so her girlfriend doesn't know this big part of her life. She had like, her best friends are online friends, and she doesn't tell people how she actually knows them because she won't admit to being a role player. So there's just this whole secret identity hidden thing about her hiding most of her life from her family and friends. The main reason she hides it from her family is because she knows that she gets very obsessive and her dad doesn't want her to get too obsessive because then her grades will fall by the wayside, which is something that happens in this, so she doesn't want her dad to know that these friends are online friends. And it's just a really interesting look at online friendship, role-playing communities, any sort of online community, and when you bring that community into your real life and having to explain to people things. Because there are some people who are going to think it's weird, but most people, I feel like in this day and age, won't. And this is a lesson that this girl had to learn the hard way. I feel like with our generation in particular, those type of online friendships are so normalized. Like a far cry from the 90s, we were told like, oh, don't talk to strangers online, and then all of our best friends are strangers online. Especially, I feel like with millennials. But I really enjoyed this. I gave it a solid like 4 stars. I would definitely read another thing by this author because I liked the commentary and the social commentary about meshing the online friendships with real friendships. I thought it was very interesting. And then I read Counterclockwise. This was by L.J. Zephyr. This is a male-male time travel romance, which was the only thing I knew about it. I think I got it on a Stuff Your Kindle day, like several Stuff Your Kindle days ago. And this was very short. It was like novella length. He like goes back in time and finds this guy, and he's supposed to figure out how the world ended. And supposedly the guy that he goes back to find out more about how the world ended, but he's not allowed to interfere. And it turns out things are not quite as they seem in the history books of how the world ended and how this apocalypse ended, because there is a rift in time that ends up destroying the world in his world that he comes from in the future. That's very confusing, but that's the most I can explain to you without giving anything away. It is a very, very good time travel romance. This definitely made me download another, I think, 2 or 3 of this author's works because I loved the writing style so much, and they did romance very, very well. I gave this a 4.5 stars. It was really good for a sci-fi novella. And then I read The Patient Routine. I picked this up for free somewhere. It might have been a Stuff Your Kindle day. It might have just been a random free book. I don't remember how I heard about it. I know I probably picked it up because of the cover, because the cover is stunning. But this is about a non-binary main character. It's told in verse, and they are trapped in a hospital during a quarantine. It's very short. It's novella length. It's got extreme amounts of body horror and like almost obsessive compulsive thoughts about the body horror. So if those are triggers for you, please tread carefully and read the trigger warnings. But this was a really, really good little horror novella. I liked it a lot. There are also triggers for dead naming and misgendering in this from really bad people that are also in this situation. This was like 200 pages. I gave it 3.75 stars. It was a very, very fun little short horror novel. If you're looking for short horror novels, because I know Summerween is also coming up or about to happen or something as I'm filming this, and I know a lot of people look for novellas for that, so I definitely recommend this one. Then I read another little sapphic book. I believe this was also novella length, called Down to a Science. This is just a queer awakening. Like, it's a sapphic queer lesbian awakening of this girl who has just never cared about any form of like romance or dating or anything like that, and she meets this girl and she becomes obsessed with her, and she thinks at first it's just she wants to be friends with her, and then realizes slowly over time, because this story takes place over several years, that she is romantically interested in this girl, and it's her working through all of that. It was also like a STEMinist novella, so if you're a big fan of Ali Hazelwood and would like to read like a sapphic version of that, definitely check this one out. I gave it 3.5 stars. And then I read a book that I have owned for years and have just never read because I always forget to read a lot of my books written in verse, and that is Vanilla by Billy Merrill. This is about an asexual main character. It is about these 2 boys who grew up best friends. Even when they were younger, they realized they were probably at least sexually or romantically attracted to each other, and it's about the boy, or at least one of the boys, is sexually attracted to his partner, and the other boy is just struggling with the fact that he's not, and he can't figure out why. And it's over time him realizing that he is probably asexual. I love this cover. I also love the naked hardback. It's very, very pretty. And I've owned this book for years, and I'm glad that I finally read it, especially for Pride Month, because it did make me cry a little bit. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is lots of triggers for anything homophobia, aphobia, all of that is very, very present in here. As far as I know, this is the only book that this author has ever written, which I find interesting because this came out quite a while ago. Yeah, 2017, so I really enjoyed this. I'm glad to have finally read it. Get your tissues ready if you're gonna read it. And then I read the book. I got this in a little free library. It was like a queer specific little free library that I went to specifically up in Cleveland when I was out and about up there. I actually went up there for Pride, and right afterwards we went to check out this little free library because they claimed to have a lot of queer books, and I had seen this book around. I like vaguely know that Hayley Kiyoko is a singer. I also, having been on a lot of like sapphic dating websites over the years, last couple of years, know that she's also called the Lesbian Jesus. And that was the only thing I knew about her. I'd never heard any of her music. I didn't even realize this book was based off of her, like, one of her most famous music videos from back in the day, until after I read the book, and it literally says that in the little blurb in the back. So I read this. It made me cry. It's a really cute sapphic romance, but there's a lot of like homophobia in this. There's a lot of really shitty guys in this, and I binged this in one night, and immediately the rest of the night went and watched every single music video that Hayley Kiyoko has and downloaded a bunch of her music, and I'm now kind of obsessed with her. So I understand the hype with Hayley Kiyoko. I think this is a really good book for someone who doesn't really write books. Like, that's not her normal. She's usually a singer. I don't know if this is ghost written or if she wrote it herself, but it's a really good sapphic romance if you're looking for one. And if you perhaps, like me, have been living under a rock and didn't know anything about Hayley Kiyoko, this will send you probably on the same spiral that it sent me on, because I'm obsessed with her. And then the next book that I read is Stay Gold by Tobley Smith. This was I was like, oh, it's a cute male, like trans main character, not male. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a cute trans main character in high school, without thinking of the consequences of how crap people are in high school to queer people. And this was really, really cute. It had a lot of like body dysmorphia stuff, and the main character dealing with moving to a new school and not wanting anybody to know that he was trans, and like hiding that part of himself. And then the last like 30 or 40 pages of this, where there's so many triggers for like queer violence, homophobia, and all of that towards the end of this, because I was a sobbing mess for like the last 30-40 pages of this. It was so sad. It took me so much by surprise, and I just was not mentally prepared or emotionally prepared for the ending of this book. And it has made me love this author so much because I had such a visceral emotional reaction to it. So I gave this 4.75 stars. Like, I probably will end up bumping it up to a 5 because it was so good. And then I read the first book in Dead Serious. This is currently my new obsession. This is a story about a mortician who goes out for his birthday. He's like an extreme recluse. He doesn't like people. He's a big introvert. And he goes out to this like restaurant for drinks for his birthday, I believe, with his coworkers. He chokes on an ice cube and then technically suffocates and dies for like 2 minutes before the paramedics can bring him back. And then he is at work the next day working on a body, and a ghost pops up in his mortuary, and it is this drag queen who is the ghost of the body that he is doing the autopsy of. And chaos ensues from here. He ends up getting a boyfriend who gets involved in this. His boyfriend, he's scared to tell his boyfriend that he can see ghosts now, and it turns into this big paranormal adventure of him. This first book is about him figuring out Dusty's death, who is the drag queen. So he ends up in this place called the Rainbow Room, and he's trying to figure out why or who could have killed Dusty, and Dusty is like determined to help him figure out who killed her. I loved this first book. I gave it 5 stars, and spoiler alert for the rest of this, I read all 5 of them this month because it has become my new obsession. But I loved the first book, gave it 5 stars. And then I read another sapphic romance. I feel like I read a lot of sapphic books this month, and this is probably one of my favorite sapphic ones I've read in a while, and that is Outdrawn. And this is a sapphic romance of these like rivals to lovers who have both become very, very big online personas of people who write comics, like online comics, online graphic novels. And our main girl gets a job at the company that her rival works at as a head writer or a co-head writer, and it's these two girls trying to get along. basically for half of the book, and realizing there aren't as many differences between them as they thought they were. They just have had this online competition between their art projects for so long that they don't know how to not act that way. And it is the whole enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers thing. And it was really cute. I liked it a lot. It's a very, very cute sapphic. If you're looking for a good sapphic romance, I highly recommend this one. It is also POC main characters. And I really liked all of the, like, there's a competition during this of them having to, what I imagine is the comic version, and maybe I'm unfamiliar with online comics, the comic version of like AO3 is like running a competition of like who has the most popular online graphic novel. And that's a big part of this story, and I thought it was really interesting look at internet culture as well as a really cute sapphic rivals to lovers romance. I gave it 4.5 stars. And then I read Kayla Cottingham's other book, which is My Dearest Darkest. This is a book I've had for quite a while. And this is weird horror. I always felt I heard this described as very similar to Wilder Girls by Rory Powers, if you've read that. It is literally this boarding school. It's sapphic. There's some eldritch being under the school. There's this weird ghost thing that they find in the tunnels under the school where they're not supposed to be there. And all of these girls keep going down there and like coming back like more beautiful than they were before. And they find out that this thing will grant your wishes. And everybody does it for fun at first. And then they realize that there are slowly like more serious consequences to the things that they are doing and the wishes they are granting. And it might be giving this being more power. So this is a sapphic horror novel. I thought it was very fun. It does give me Wilder Girl vibes if you enjoyed that book, but I gave this 4 stars. I didn't like it quite as much as This Vicious Death by the same author, but I enjoyed this one all the same. Next, I read Act Cool, which is also by Toby Smith, the book earlier that made me sob my eyeballs out. This is about a trans boy who goes to New York City to go to this popular, like, theater academy because he wants to be on Broadway. And the deal is that he is allowed to go to this academy, and he told his parents are allowing him to go to this academy and live with his aunt who lives in New York City, only if he promises to not turn into a boy while he's there. So you imagine the homophobia that ensues with that. He becomes his true self. He is able to thrive as the boy that he is in New York City. And then one of the nights he is in a show and he ends up landing a female part in Grease. He ends up playing Rizzo to please his parents when they come to see him, because he doesn't want them to know that he is able to be a boy, able to be himself at this school, because his parents won't let him go to the school anymore. There's even a lot of good commentary on theater culture in here about, like, there's a whole portion of this book where the people are really angry that if he's a boy that he tried out for a female part, and how there's a whole thing of there shouldn't be a binary of like who can play what part. As long as you can sing the part and do the part, it shouldn't matter what gender you are, which I think is a very important conversation to have within theater itself. There's a huge trigger warning for unsupportive parents and just like rude people not understanding the gender binary and like the lack thereof, its existence, people being mean for things that they don't understand. I really like this. I gave it 4 stars, and I've read both of Toby McSmith's books, so I don't know when they're going to come out or if they're going to come out with another one, but I really hope they do because I loved both of them. And then I read this random duology. I don't even know how I came across it. It might have just been on a queer recommendations thing that I happened across so many of those this month, but I ended up reading All Tomorrow's Photos, and the only thing I knew about this was that it was a male serial killer romance. And I was like, sign me up. So this is obviously a dark romance. It is about this man who finds out very, like, relatively young, like early 20s, that he enjoys killing people. He gets off on it. It gives him like a rush like nothing else, but he's also a photographer. And what he likes to do is photograph his victims in very, like, what I would describe as Hannibal-esque poses, like really grotesque poses, and the police are after him trying to figure out who he is, what's going on, why they're doing this, but he ends up dating this new boy, and it's a constant, will he tell his partner that he's a serial killer, will his partner find these photos that he hides in the basement, like this whole thing. And it's a duology. The second one is called All Tomorrow's Papers. It's a very, very fast duology. They were relatively short books. And I really enjoy them. If you like dark romance and want more male serial killers, which I don't know that I've ever read that specific combination, highly recommend these. And then the last 4 books are the same series I was talking about, the Dead Series books. The second one here is Miss Dolores Abernathy. This one was really fun. I can't really give a whole lot away about these books because there's a ton of spoilers towards the end of the series. The whole shtick with this second one is that the ghost that is following him around has Alzheimer's, so she can't tell him how to help her. She just follows him around and he has to do a lot of the piecing together the clues himself and with his friends in this one. Also a bit of a spoiler for the first one, but it's very obvious throughout the series. Dusty, the drag queen from the first book, ends up coming back as a spirit guide. So she's in all of the books as like his best friend, and their relationship is one of my favorite things over the course of the series. But this one I gave 4 stars. These middle books were very like mystery of the week, but also him navigating his relationship with Danny, who is a detective inspector for Scotland Yard. These take place in the UK. And Danny slowly finding out like his partner can see ghosts and such is a constant reoccurring theme throughout this as well. And the third one is Mr. Bruce Reyes. This is a love interest of Dusty, who is the drag queen in this, that she has met in the bookshop that a lot of this stuff takes place in. We learn a lot more about our side characters in this series. We're introduced to a lot more. I'm not going to give away who a lot of them are, but this one was very interesting because it's a character that's been reoccurring throughout the books. I'm sorry I can't say much about these. I don't want to spoil them because they're so fun. And the fourth one was really fun. It was literally like a murder mystery hotel. They like go to the hotel to get some time away for themselves, him and Danny, as a couple. And this was literally Clue in a hotel of like, it's called Professor Prometheus Plume. And it's them trying to solve this closed door Clue mystery of like how this guy who was in a locked room by himself died. And there's all sorts of fun characters. It's a very Agatha Christie type murder mystery. It was very fun. I enjoyed it. I also gave it 4 stars. And then book 5, which is Dead Series number 5, Madame Vivian. This opened up a whole bunch of things that I didn't realize. There's a whole nother series that Vaughn Cassidy has under a different pen name called Wendy Saunders. And this introduced us to who I would believe is the main character in that series and how complicated this world is. And I loved the opening up of the world. I loved the conclusion to the characters that I've come to know and love in this one, and I cannot wait to read her other series. She's also going to do a spin-off of this one, which I believe comes out early-ish next year, of one of the side couples, and I'm so excited for that as well. But those are all the books I read in June. Let me know what your favorite of the month has been down below. Mine is definitely Dead Series. I loved all 5 of those books and cannot wait to read more of this author's works. I had a great time reading like exclusively queer books the entire month. I'm obviously going to carry a lot of that over into next month because, as they say, read queer all year. But if this is for some reason the first video of mine that you are seeing, I'm like pre-filming a bunch of these at once because I haven't done sit down YouTube videos in a while. And this is the only way I can make myself do it, is to film all at once. But if you didn't know, I have a bookstagram, which I will link down below and put right here so you can go see it. It's called Haley's Library, and if I ever am absent from this channel for any period of time, you can definitely see me over there. I'm way more active over there, especially in stories, so please go check that out if you haven't already. But thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.